2026 won't be the year we monitor new tech. It's going to be the year the government finally goes to war over tech with AI, privacy, social media, everything that was originally unregulated is now going to be put underneath of a microscope. And here's the twist and the most crazy part of all. States, governments, countries, they're not even on the same page. So the first one, the biggest legal shift of 2026 is artificial intelligence, hands down. It went from cool innovation to regulated risk. And instead of a global law, we have a patchwork of laws depending on where you operate, where you reside, whatever country you're in, whatever state you are in. And that brings us into the EU Act, the Europe Act. So in 2026, the EU AI Act will become fully enforceable. I believe it's August 2nd, 2026. It'll become fully enforceable. And that means AI systems are now going to be classified by risk level. And because they're going to be classified by risk level, high risk AI, which will be like hiring systems, law enforcement tools, or even critical infrastructure, they will face very strict and regulated rules. And this isn't guidance, it will be the law. And this is part of the EU Act, the EU AI Act. And since we've talked about the EU, let's talk about the US. So I mentioned previously, it's going to be like a patchwork of rules and laws. The US won't have one AI law. There is going to be 50 different experiments or laws, depending on how you want to put it, that will regulate AI. And there were a few states that actually passed recent AI laws, like California. They are forcing big AI companies to publish their safety details, which is smart, and they're also protecting whistleblowers. They had another law that was passed that regulates certain AI chatbots, and even regulates some of the pricing algorithms. In Colorado, they passed a law that if you're using high-risk AI, which I previously mentioned, you must disclose it. But if it causes harm, you're also responsible for that harm. New York also passed a few different AI laws. One of them is being, if your ads contain AI-generated content, you must disclose it, which I think is smart. No more thinking you're looking at a human and it's not actually a human. Utah also has a new law, and this one kind of goes with New York, but if you are interfacing with AI, especially in a professional setting, you must be made aware of it. For the US, 2026 is going to be a massive AI battle between the different states and dealing with the federal government. So if you are a tech company in the US, you are now part of the experiment of the different laws, and it also comes down to your zip code. So in this next section, I want to talk about federal versus state. It's the AI power struggle. So in 2025, the federal government dropped a bombshell. It's an executive order that can override state AI laws if it harms competitiveness. So in translation, they're battling between growth versus safety. So think about this. States want guardrails, but the federal government wants speed. This shift will determine how fast or how recklessly AI will evolve for the United States. 2026 is also going to be the year where data privacy is no longer optional. Well, that depends on what state you're in. Your data has rights, but only in certain states. Indiana, Rhode Island, and Kentucky are now giving consumers the right to access, correct, or even delete their data. But here's the funny part. Europe has already had this, but in the United States, there's not one US standard law for data privacy. And I think after 2026, I think a lot more states are going to follow through with what these other states like Indiana and Kentucky have done, or the United States is going to have a standard law that covers data privacy. So another change for 2026 is social media and youth control. So the government is finally treating social media like a public health hazard. So in Virginia, there is now going to be a law where social media has to impose time limits on minors, which I think is smart. So Texas and Utah are implementing age verification at the App Store level. So if you go to download a specific app and you don't meet the specific age based on the verification, you won't be able to get the app. But this will also be a direct hit on engagement-based business models, because if your attention on the app is the product, the government is now rationing it. So the last thing I want to talk about, regulation doesn't just mean freedom protection. Australia expanded their government surveillance in 2026, and tech companies can now be compelled to assist in providing private messages. So very similar to data privacy issues. And that leads me to this final question. Where is the line between safety and surveillance? 2026 is not going to be the year where we have a set definitive answer on tech policy. No, we are experimenting with everything tech-wise and AI. 2026 isn't anti-tech, it's anti-unchecked power, if you will, because AI is no longer just code. It is the law, there are regulations, and there are now politics involved. And how this plays out will determine who controls the future. It's either going to be the government, it's going to be corporations, or it's going to be people. And it definitely ain't going to be people, so it's either going to be the government or it's going to be corporations. So do you think AI regulation protects us, or is it going to slow innovation? And should the federal government have the ability to override state AI laws? Drop it in the comments below. I read the comments. Thank you for watching. This is Zach Tech.